So God just gave me another quick word here about the counterfeit. I put out a word about, I think it was like a week ago, talking about the counterfeit and referencing the Little Mermaid. And it was like a part 2 to the Ursula message I had put out a few months back. So I'm hoping that this message will be fairly short because sometimes they're short, but then he goes into detail, like with that last one about the counterfeit. And I don't like to get into that energy too much, so I'm hoping that we don't go too deep. But anyway, so take this to who it resonates and who it may apply to. But the Lord is saying is that if there's been a triangle going on with, say, yourself, your spouse, and a counterfeit. Now, again, this can apply if you're a male, you have a female spouse and there's another male counterfeit. And if you're a female, then there's you, female, and your male spouse, and then a female counterfeit. So it would be a situation, a triangle involving another party that would be the same sex as what you are, right? Same gender as you are. Anyways, just want to make that clear. So the Lord is saying that what he's been working on and what's been happening, and you may already know this, but this is a little confirmation, is when it all started out originally, you, your spouse, and the counterfeit spouse were all in the world, right? You all worked for Satan. You were in the world. Now, some like to say that your spouse is chosen and they just haven't realized it yet. I'm not going to confirm that or deny it, confirm or deny it, because possibly they are chosen. But you yourself are chosen, or you know that you're chosen. And one of the reasons why you are chosen is because you've been chosen for this assignment, right? So maybe before this all began, you didn't know you were chosen. You maybe didn't know that there was a counterfeit. You maybe hadn't been sold out to the Lord yet. Maybe you were still in the world. But throughout your journey, however that may be for you, everybody's different. This timeline for you could look like months. It could look like years, right? But the Lord is saying in most cases, it's been like quite a while. Like it's been many months, like 10, 11, 12 months, leading to 1 to 2 to 3 years, some even longer, right? Throughout that journey, you were chosen out of the triangle, out of the three parties. Whether the other two are chosen or not is honestly irrelevant. Like whether your spouse and the counterfeit are chosen, that's up to God, but that's irrelevant. You were chosen, right? And maybe at the time you didn't know that. But as you've gotten closer to the Lord and you've been on this journey with your spouse, you've discovered things have been revealed to you throughout the journey. First and foremost, that you're a chosen one. Second of all, you can see that there's an assignment going on here. It's more than just, like when you're in the world, you know how like people get with other people and then there's a girl with 3 guys on the go and a guy with 5 girls on the go, you know what I mean? That's how you used to kind of look at it. Maybe you yourself weren't monogamous with your spouse. Maybe your spouse wasn't monogamous with you. Take it how it applies. But since you've been on your journey with the Lord, he's obviously called you into celibacy, monogamy. You're off the dating sites. You're not trying to date, things like that, because in order to have a successful relationship with your spouse, you would have to first have a successful relationship with the Lord. And so the Lord knew that you had this situationship going on from the beginning, but unbeknownst to you, you were chosen for this assignment. And step one wasn't maybe your step one was to get with your spouse, or maybe not, or, whatever, maybe to continue to date or whatnot. But the Lord's plan, which trumps all plans, was for you to leave the world, say bye-bye to Satan, sell yourself out to the Lord, become committed to him, become a born-again believer, be saved and delivered from your demons and your sin cycles, and from the clutches of Satan, and to get on your path with Jesus and commit to him first and foremost, put him first. And then all things will be added unto you, right? So that's where you're at. So maybe someone will come along this message and you're just starting out. Maybe this message will give you some insight. And for others of you that are already well seasoned, well experienced, far, years into this, maybe you could understand all the more what I'm trying to say. Maybe it'll confirm things for you, right? Like maybe it's making sense. So anyway, so what's this assignment? Okay. Well, the assignment is if your spouse is chosen, it's for you to be like I've said words on this in the past about being the pioneer, the first navigator. So someone has to go first, right? If you're all in the world, someone has to take the first steps and leave the breadcrumbs for the next person to follow and the next person to follow, right? So the Lord chose you as the navigator, the pilot, so to speak, to lead the way, okay? You have left a breadcrumb trail for your spouse to follow. They have tried following the trail many times, but the devil already lost you, but he never really had you as he had these other people, like your spouse in this counterfeit, because you were chosen from birth, right? So that's why I say it's really kind of irrelevant either way, because either way, it has a point to it, right? So the devil knew he was going to lose you. That was a done deal, because from birth, even if you were in the world and you were in sin, you still you were God's child, right? But your spouse maybe has been lukewarm, and the counterfeit is typically a child of Satan, right? And I put this out in my last word. So Satan, it's kind of like a ranking scale. He didn't want to lose you, but he would rather sacrifice and spare losing you, because he knew it was you were a goner anyways, as long as he could keep this spouse, because the spouse was a more prevalent worker in the kingdom of darkness than you were. So say, for instance, I'm using examples. Say you were in the world, but you would never steal. Just say your spouse would, right? Say you were in the world and maybe you drank and smoked or something, but you never did hard drugs. Well, your spouse would. Or say when you got in relationships, you never cheated or strayed. And if you did, maybe it was with one person, but your spouse would sleep around with multiples, right? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just using an example. So you were in the world, of course, in the past, but you weren't as strong of a source of evil and wickedness as, say, your spouse was. So Satan knew what was happening, that you were leaving and you left already. That's a done deal. But you left these breadcrumbs for your spouse that was following you towards the light of Jesus, like the light you followed. But along the way, Satan was setting even more traps for your spouse than what you went through, because he was less interested in losing your spouse as a worker for him, right? If that makes sense. Plus, your spouse is and was not as strong as you are. You're more strong emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You might not be more strong physically, or maybe you may be, I don't know. But mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because you're a chosen one from birth, you were stronger. Satan put out temptations and traps for you too, but you were able to surpass them. Your spouse has had more of a struggle with that, and that is why the Lord has been putting it on you to pray for them, because you probably didn't have people praying for you. You had Jesus praying for you. But the Lord knows your spouse, whether male or female, is not as strong as you are internally, so therefore they need that extra boost, and that's coming from the prayers that you're praying for them, okay? Now, that's step 2. So step 1 was to have you as his chosen, realize you're chosen, become born again, leave the world, leave Satan's world, and go follow the light to Jesus, right? Second step was to leave that trail for your spouse to follow. The spouse has been following, but they've gotten lost along the way because of their weakness internally of resisting temptation, and also because Satan's been pulling out all the stops to try to detour them along the way, get them lost, okay? So if you're there, then this is making sense. The third step that's going to be coming down the road in the future is that this counterfeit spouse, they represent Satan's kingdom the most. So you're on the light side, the counterfeit spouse on the dark side, the spouse, male or female, is stuck in the middle. 1 foot in the light side, 1 foot in the dark side, right? This counterfeit spouse is big time Satan's top dog, okay? Male or female. Like, so if you were doing, just say 5 sinful things, your spouse was doing 10, this counterfeit spouse is doing like 20. They are like a huge worker in Satan's kingdom. Whether they realize it or not, they are. So part 3 of the plan, God's plan, is for your spouse to eventually, it may take some time through, of course, you'll have to pray for them and be patient and things like that, just like how Jesus prayed for you and was patient for you, to find your way and navigate your way. Be patient with your spouse, because the Lord's showing me like you're up ahead, right? Because you're the forerunner. You've left these breadcrumbs. Your spouse is trailing behind you, following the way, because they need that. They can't do this on their own. If it was up to them, they would just be stuck in the world and that would be it for them. That's it. So they're relying on you and solely you to show them the way with these breadcrumbs. And of course, the person that led you was Jesus. So Jesus led you, now you're leading your spouse. While your spouse is following these breadcrumbs, the counterfeit is following them. For 2 reasons. 1, because Satan is sending them after the spouse to try to bring them back. And for 2, because the Lord is allowing this following to go on, follow the leader. You know that game, remember that childhood game playing following the leader? He just gave that to me. So that's what it's like. Jesus led you, you're leading the spouse, and the spouse is leading the counterfeit, okay? But the kingpin of all who's leading is Jesus. He led you, he's leading the spouse through you, and he's leading the counterfeit through the spouse, okay? So the counterfeit spouse knows they don't know what's going on, but they know what's going on enough to where they know that it's like they've manufactured this competition, and it's not a competition, right? Because God's plan is to save you, save the spouse, and save the counterfeit. Have all 3 of you leave Satan's kingdom and go work for the Lord, okay? That's his plan. So all you're doing is following your leader, which is Jesus, and doing God's plan, which is being obedient, and you pretty much have to do God's plan. Satan knows that God's plan trumps all, and that whether it take another month, another 2 months, another year, another 5 years, that eventually God's plan will supersede all. You'll be saved, this kingdom spouse will be saved, and so will this counterfeit, right? Once this counterfeit is saved, they're going to view the world in a different way. They're only doing what they're doing because they're unsaved and they've been working for Satan, whether they realize it or not. And in a lot of the cases, they do know that they're working for Satan. And so Satan has turned it into this competition in their head, and or this counterfeit spouse has turned it into this competition in their head on purpose, so that they can try to, it's kind of like what I put out in that little mermaid word on my last word about the counterfeit, because Ariel was able to do what she did in a natural, good-hearted, pure-hearted way, right? Just by being like good-natured. But Ursula couldn't do that because she was evil. She worked for Satan. So she had to rely on things like making herself look different, act different, copy things about Ariel, make herself look younger, make herself look this, like it was all on the outside superficialness, and theoretically being someone that she wasn't, and using magic, manipulation, lying, backbiting, backstabbing, like really sneaky, underhanded, backdoor ways to try to make her plan go in. And so Ariel was kind of being in one end and was leading the prince on one end, but then here was Ursula trying to ruin everything for her benefit on her end, right? So it's like every time Ariel would take 2 steps forward in the situation, The witch was there trying to pull her 3 steps back, and then back and forth, right? As we know from the movie. So the Lord gave me that movie as an example to try to reference what he's trying to say here. So, like I said, you're like Ariel, where you're the chosen one, you're good-natured, and you don't have to rely on dirty-handed things to have things go in a certain direction, because you're not manipulating things to go in your favor or in your direction. This is God's plan. God designed in the movie for Ariel and the prince to be together. That was his plan. And even though the witch was doing this to try to change things up, in the end, what was meant to be happened to be, right? Well, that's the same thing. As no one, nothing, no witch, no demon, no devil, no Satan, no nada is going to thwart or stop the plan of the Lord. And so the Lord's plan is for you and your spouse to be together, but not just that, but to also save all 3 souls, especially this, for one, wake you up to being the chosen one and discovering your gifts and your path, and 2, especially getting this counterfeit, well, your spouse as well, but also this counterfeit spouse from the clutches of Satan. Because whether they're willingly working for Satan or unwillingly or unknowingly working for him, it doesn't matter. Whether that counterfeit spouse is chosen or not, it doesn't matter. You yourself are chosen, and it's the Lord's grand plan to have you follow him first, which you've already done, check. Wake your kingdom spouse up and have them follow behind you through your breadcrumb trail that you left, check. And then the third part of the plan is to have this counterfeit spouse go chasing after, to where along the way so you're waking up, and because you're waking up, your kingdom spouse is waking up. And because your kingdom spouse is waking up, this counterfeit is waking up. So it's like a domino effect, right? And then I don't know, because that's all the Lord gave me insight on, but I'm assuming that in turn this counterfeit spouse is going to awaken someone else too and go on their own journey. Right? Because when you're in the world and working for Satan, you're stuck, you're stagnant, you're not going anywhere, right? It's like in the movie, after Ariel and the prince married, they went off together. I think the dad granted her legs, so then she was able to now be on land with him, right? And do all the things that she wanted to do. But Ursula was still stuck in the sea, right? So it's like the same idea, is that the only way that you can advance or have your dreams come true, or, be happy or anything like that, truly is if you, and to receive the Lord's blessings, is if you leave Satan's kingdom. And what's funny too is because we know like the marine kingdom represents Satan, right? And Ariel was in the ocean with the marine life, like the marine kingdom. She got her legs and was on land like a human. So I just had that insight. Thank you, Lord. So he's confirming all the more that, yes, this is like marine kingdom, marine spirits, that's where it comes from. And so Ursula was a sea witch, and she was a sea witch in the movie. And even in the end, she stayed a sea, like she was still in the sea. She was stuck, right? And that's the same thing with this counterfeit spouse, is that, so you're fully working for the Lord, you're in the light now. Your kingdom spouse, you probably have noticed them doing back and forth, where like a couple weeks they see the light, you think that the change has occurred, they've come to their senses, they followed the breadcrumbs, they're walking towards that light source of Jesus Christ, everything's just, going how it should. And then all of a sudden you see them just and revert right back to how they were before. That's because that's Satan constantly coming. It's okay. Yeah. So the Lord is also showing me how, like, in Exodus, how Moses was leading the Israelites away from Egypt, right? And oh my gosh, this makes so much sense now. He was leading the Israelites from Egypt, and they were cornered. So as we know, the Lord parted the Red Sea so they could get through. But Pharaoh, representing Satan, followed and was chasing the Israelites. So you're like Moses. Moses worked for the Lord. Moses was the pioneer. He was leading the way. Moses was saved, right? He wasn't no lukewarm. He wasn't half and half. He was chosen by the Lord for an assignment, for a mission, and he was leading the way, okay? The Israelites, they represent your kingdom spouse, where they're kind of like, have one foot in Egypt with Pharaoh and one foot heading towards Moses, towards the Red Sea to escape, right? So the Israelites wanted to leave, but Pharaoh wouldn't let them. And so that's like your kingdom spouse. They want to leave this counterfeit. They want to leave the world behind. They're done with Pharaoh, aka the counterfeit, and with Satan. And they're done with Egypt, aka the world. They want to follow into the light, into salvation, which is what Moses was showing the way to go, and you're showing the way to go. But just when they were making good on their escape, Pharaoh let them go. Pharaoh came back for another round to chase after them, to bring them back, because Pharaoh didn't want to lose the slaves, right? And so basically, this counterfeit has your spouse in like a form of slavery of some sort, okay? And the spouse represents like the Israelites trying to leave that place. And if they were just allowed to go, they would. But how Pharaoh chased them down, right? So that's what this counterfeit spouse is doing. They're being pushed and nudged by Satan to go chase after that kingdom spouse. And the reason why is because Satan doesn't want to lose 3 people. That he's already gone, you're already done. Your spouse, well, they're on their way. And they've shown that, proven that already to you and to Satan and to the Lord. And third, this counterfeit spouse. Because once this counterfeit spouse, because the counterfeit spouse has been putting the kingdom spouse under delusion, right? But the counterfeit spouse themselves is under delusion, right? Ursula was doing witchcraft and stuff to have things go her way, but she herself, in order to even think that these things would work out or be successful, obviously shown that she herself is under some sort of delusion herself to begin with, right? Like we saw in the movie, Ariel wasn't resorting to those tactics, right? So, and you may have seen this depending on your journey, some of the things that this counterfeit spouse is doing. And you just think like, wow, okay. So Satan doesn't want to lose your spouse and the counterfeit spouse, because then he'll lose 3 people on his side to God's side. But Satan knows deep down that God's plan will always work out. And so it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When will this reach its finalization, right? Who knows? That time frame is up to the Lord. But yeah, so I hope that makes sense. Like how, and shine some light as to, you know, what's been going on, and it shows it from a spiritual lens, right? Because Satan wants you to get caught up in the worldly things, because Satan knows that you're not of the world anymore, but that your spouse partially is, and this counterfeit spouse definitely is. So the counterfeit spouse is trying to pull you in to this like delusional competition. It's not even a thing. Even if you chose to compete, the Lord wouldn't have it, because that's not his plan. Is to have you saved and out, save the spouse, save the counterfeit. So the Lord wouldn't even let you compete if you wanted to. He wouldn't let them win the competition that they've created in their minds, because his plan is to move to the right. Satan's plan is to move to the left. So therefore, you know, there's going to be no sidestepping. The Lord's plan will be done, and that's it. And so you're going to see this manifest in different ways, where this counterfeit spouse is maybe trying to like copy you or emulate you. They don't even know why they're doing it, but they are, and it's sent from Satan, because Satan's made them think, well, if you just pretend, because as we know, Satan never comes to you looking like a scary demon like he is. He comes to you disguised as an angel, right? So Satan's resorting to, he's already seen that this kingdom spouse has started to take steps in the direction of Jesus. He's already seen it. So therefore, desperate times call for desperate measures, to where Satan is having this counterfeit spouse pretend to be you in ways, or a Christian person and things like that, to say, no, look, see, I'm Christian too. I walk with Jesus. Come this way. But you're actually the diamond on the right hand side doing things the way the Lord wants you to, you're the real deal. Okay? This counterfeit spouse is playing no different than how Ursula was really a sea witch, but she was pretending she looked like something else. This counterfeit spouse is pretending to work for the light, work for Jesus too, so that it makes it harder. Because when there's a contrast of light versus dark, it makes it a lot easier for the kingdom spouse to choose a side, right? But and Satan knows that. So one of the old tactics that the counterfeit was using are not working anymore. So what the counterfeit has started to do, Satan, their father, is the father of lies, of deceit, and he pretends to be something he's not, just to get his way, right? So he's having the counterfeit pretend that they're, good and like pure and they're a diamond too and things like that, but they're not. They're a cubic zirconia. They're not the real deal, right? And so the kingdom spouse is confused because just like I put out a word about diamond versus cubic zirconia, if you see a diamond ring and a cubic zirconia and I only show them to you for 5 seconds, you might not know from first glance which is the real deal. But if I give you time to study them and stuff and take time, then you're going to see, which one is real, right? And which one's fake. The counterfeit, the pretend. So the counterfeit is not really giving the spouse any time to really think, because Satan has let the counterfeit know that if given that, the spouse will be able to determine what's what, right? So instead, the counterfeit is trying to bring you into this competition, to bring you down, to make you look like you're worldly, even though you're not. And in turn, alongside that, fake it and pretend that even though they know they're a cubic zirconia, pretend they're a diamond and make it like, no, see, okay, so your God-ordained spouse, the spouse that truly represents the kingdom of the Lord, is the real deal, and I represent the kingdom of darkness. So therefore, it's very easy to see who's who. So the old ways are not working anymore, and if they kept up with the old ways, the spouse would already be over on the light side like they're supposed to be, right? So just like had Pharaoh not chased the Israelites, the Lord wouldn't have had to part the Red Sea. They could have just left scot-free. But because Pharaoh decided, I'm going to chase him after all, sent by Satan, of course. Satan sent Pharaoh to chase. The Lord had no choice but to part the Red Sea, right? And the Lord is saying it's more than just providing a means of escape. It was also to show that it was also to show the Lord's glory. It was to show what he's capable of and what he can do, right? So he also wanted to show Pharaoh that, because then he drowned Pharaoh's army, that you're not stronger than me and my plan will trump yours every time, right? So it was because God could have sent the Israelites around a mountain. He could have sent them, down this other road. Like he could have done lots of things. He didn't. He parted a sea just to show Pharaoh, I'm going to sock it to you type of a thing. You want to go? Okay, I'll go, right? So the Lord wants to prove his glory as well, right? So the Lord is going to prove his glory in this situation, right? And at the end of it, if all things go according to plan, he's going to save 3 souls. As for the counterfeit saving and deliverance, I don't know, that's just what the Lord's told me, that is his plan. And pray for them, because hopefully that they can be saved and delivered, because nobody should be working for Satan's kingdom. It's not even a kingdom, just for Satan's team. No one should be working there, right? And also just keep praying for your spouse. If this, again, take this message if it applies and resonates, right? Because this might just be for a few people. But keep praying for your spouse, because it's helping to guide the way, to illuminate the way of where they need to go. Because currently, and for a while now, the counterfeit has been trying to pretend they are of the light too, just to try to, deceive your spouse, so that they don't really know, they get confused and they don't really know which way to go and who's really who. And also avoid trying to be pulled into any type of competition with this counterfeit spouse, because I'm just saying as some insight to you, what they're trying to do is make, even though you're truly of the light, you're the real deal, they're trying to make you look worldly, and then they are really truly of the world, but they're trying to make themselves look godly. And so that way, you know, it kind of evens out a little bit and the spouse doesn't know which way to go. But no, you really are of the light 100%, and they at this time really represent the darkness 100%. And so keep things as they should be, right? Remember who you are and who they are. So anyways, I hope this message blesses you. I hope it finds its way to who it needs to, and God bless.